Hey guys, it is time for me to tell you all about the books I read in August. Stick around to see what books I read and what I thought about them. Hey y'all, it's Jen and welcome back to my channel, Ifers Inklings. Today is my August wrap up and I've got a lot of books to talk about. Please excuse my voice. I am sick as a dog. I have pleurisy and the beginnings of pneumonia. I've had this for about 3 weeks now and I've finally got some antibiotics and some medicine, but I sound like a hot mess, but we're going to dive through this anyway. I have a lot of books to talk about in August, and most of these I listened to the audiobook version of, so we're just going to get that out of the way right there. I borrowed most of these from my library. There are some physical books that I read, and I will talk about them when I get to them. All right, so here is my list. I've got 2 pages of it, so we're going to dive in and talk about these books. The first book that I read in August was Look Alive 25 by Janet Ivanovich. I gave this 4 stars. This is the 25th actual novel in this series. There are 5 between the number books, I believe. And so I was just trying to catch up on series this month in August on audio because I just had a lot of time that I could listen to audiobooks and get things done at work and in other environments. And I had a hold on this from my library and it came in at the perfect time. The next book I listened to on audio was Kids of Appetite by David Arnold. It's 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It talked a lot about family and how your families change and how sometimes people that are not part of your family become your family, friends or that you meet because of whatever reason. And this had kind of a murder mystery type thing to it, but it's a very much a character driven novel because you learn about the lives of the characters and what drives them and what drove this murder. And in the end, you find out who committed the crime. The next book I got to finish for the month of August was American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I gave it 5 stars. As y'all know, I started this book a couple of months ago, ran out of time on my hold from the library, and it took a couple more months for me to get it back. So I was super excited to finally get to finish that audiobook. I'm a huge Neil Gaiman fan. I loved the story. I loved how everything was interwoven into this story and how he incorporated the old gods of the old countries of our immigrants into the kind of new gods that we have in the United States now, and we took that journey with him and with Shadow around the country. It was interesting. Lots of different things you can pick up on. I know that I did not absorb the story in its entirety and that I missed a lot, but it was definitely worth the read. So the next book that I listened to was another audiobook. I listened to Hooked, the brain science on how casual sex affects human development, by 2 doctors, McElhaney and Bush. I gave this one 3.5 stars. The content and the science behind it was interesting, but I don't necessarily agree with it. There was a lot of this abstinence being preached and kind of religious and only have sex when you're married, and that's just all I'm going to say about it. Gave it 3.5 stars because, again, the science that they talked about was very interesting, and I enjoyed hearing the actual science behind the research. The next book I listened to was Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, and that was a 5-star book. I highly recommend the audiobook version of this. I did buy the book. I don't have it to show you because I've got it loaned to a friend right now. But my God, the audiobook, the dialect is so perfect and spot on that I just think you get a lot more from hearing the dialect of the South Carolina backcountry marshlands than you can possibly get reading it. But highly recommend. This story was just so captivating and so gut-wrenching and just phenomenally told that I actually, like I said, halfway through listening to this audiobook, I went and picked it up, the actual physical copy of it, because I want to read it again and annotate it and highlight it and all that. The next book I listened to was A Night Divided. I actually own this book as well. I don't know where it's at. I have no idea where this book is at, which really frustrates me because it's an autographed book. So it's around here somewhere. I'm just not sure where it is, but it is by Jennifer A. Nelson, and it talks about the struggles of the two Germanys, East Germany and West Germany, in Berlin particularly, when the wall was erected right after World War II ended. The story mostly takes place in the Russia-occupied part of Berlin, and it talks about the families being separated. The dad and one of the brothers goes over to the free Germany side of Berlin, and they are trying to find a way to take the family over, and they're supposed to come back to home on Sunday, and before they're able to get back, the Berlin Wall was erected. And it talks about how it was literally erected overnight. First the fences and then the wall itself. And it's the journey of this family trying to get back to the other half, and how they are being watched by the KGB, and they've got files for being not terrorists, treasonous, and because they've been speaking out against the government and about Russia occupation of Berlin, their side of Berlin. So I found it very interesting and heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. I gave it 4 stars. The next book I listened to is The Lions of Little Rock by Kristen Levine. This is another book that I actually own a physical copy of, but I have no idea where it's at. I guess my books are walking away. I don't know, but I've looked for it and I can't find it. I've looked for it for 2 months and it's driving me crazy. But so everybody knows the story of the integration in the 1950s of Central High School. That is a big Little Rock news thing. But the story that a lot of people don't know is the very next year, because our governor Faubus did not want the schools to integrate, he closed down all the high schools in Little Rock, all of them, for the year. And so it is this story of this family. It's a middle grade novel, and so it's this story of this family, and there is a friendship that is formed early on in the book, from what turns out to be the white girl, and then a white passing black girl, and there's a lot of the racism and hatred and all of that when that comes out. You get that story and their friendship and how it comes together. I found it very interesting because, again, this is a story I know because it is taught here in Little Rock, because it's our Arkansas history. Not necessarily one we're real proud of, but it is what it is. And it was real interesting, especially knowing the landmarks that they talked about, the streets and the neighborhoods and all of that were talked about in the schools. So I found it very interesting. I thought it was well told, and I thought it did a good job showing both sides of the stories, how awful it was, and just the history side of it. It is historical fiction. It is fictionalized, but it is based in true history, and I did give it 4 stars. The next audiobook that I finished this month was More Bedtime Stories for Cynics. It's told by a bunch of different voice actors. It is a short story collection, kind of retellings of popular fairy tales, but not the good, not ending up with the happily ever after side of things. And this was an Audible original that I picked up a couple months ago. I started it on the way to work one day when I didn't have anything else downloaded, and set it aside and came back to it and revisited it. I only gave it 3 stars. There were some stories towards the end that were pretty good, and there were some stories at the beginning that weren't so great. It was just kind of meh for me. So there you have it. The next story I have, audiobook that I listened to, was The Mysteries of Alice, which is also another Audible original that I picked up the same month as More Bedtime Stories for Cynics. And this one was really good. It was told like a video chat diary. about the disappearance of Alice. And it was kind of an alternate Alice in Wonderland type story, but it was really good. I don't know how to explain it. There's kind of that mystery in there, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. The next book I listened to was The Red Scrolls of Magic by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Elder Scrolls trilogy in the Shadowhunter world. This is Magnus and Alex's story, and I was so confused listening to this book, guys. I am a huge Cassandra Clare fan, and when I picked this audiobook up, I thought it was the short story collection. And then I was like, this isn't changing. This is like one big story. What the hell? And then I realized it was the first book in this trilogy, which was fine because I had every intention of reading this one. Magnus and Alex are one of my favorite couples of this whole world. But again, I was so confused during a lot of this because some of the things that are happening in this book, I can't figure out the timeline. Like, so with the City of Bones, the Mortal Instruments series, that's kind of modern day. Well, and then it jumps to the Infernal Devices, which was like 200 years in the past. Same kind of world and stuff, but it was in the past, and we knew this. And then you jump back to the short story collection that's in there. Well, Magnus Baines' short story collection is kind of spans the past as well, his life. And then the other short story collection, the Shadowhunter Academy one, that was kind of the bridge between what happened at the end of the war and going into the beginnings of Queen of Air and Darkness series with that group of characters. But this collection of stories, this one, I don't know where the hell it fits into this timeline, because it kind of seems like, so the war is over, so I know it's there, but some of the things that happened in Queen of Air and Darkness, the timelines just don't match, and I'm having a hard time reconciling where the Elder Scrolls fit, specifically where Eileen and Helen fit into the story, because what I'm remembering isn't fitting. Let's just go with that. So I'm just really super confused on the timeline of it. I gave it 4.5 stars. The half star was because I was so confused about the timeline. It kept jumping around, and I'm like, I don't understand where we are in this timeline of this world. The next book that I read was a graphic novel. I read The Lumberjanes Volume 3, which is A Terrible Plan. I gave it 5 stars. I love this graphic novel series. I'm really enjoying going through it. It reminds me so much of Girl Scouts with a twist, and so I'm just loving it. Then I dived into The Silver Mask, which is the 4th book, I believe, in the Magisterium series, which is co-authored by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to get much into the synopsis of it because it is the 4th book in the series, but this is kind of a middle grade, the chosen one, evil overlord kind of adventure. It's real cute. I really like this whole series. Then I finished this book, It All Comes Back to You by Beth Duke. This was my book club book for the month of August, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I read it all in one sitting. I came home from work at about 3 o'clock on a Saturday, and I read it until 4 o'clock in the morning. Didn't get up. I barely got up to pee and eat because I was just so engrossed in this story and this telling. The little synopsis on the back I'm going to read to you because I think it's going to do a better job of telling you kind of what this book is about rather than me telling the story, because I don't want to give any spoilers to it. It says, Alabama, 1947. War's over, cherry print dresses, parking above the city lights, swing dancing. Beautiful 17-year-old Violet lives in a perfect world. Everybody loves her. In 2012, she's still beautiful, charming, and surrounded by admirers. Veronica, Ronnie Johnson, a licensed practitioner nurse and aspiring writer, meets the captivating Violet in the assisted living facility where Violet requires no assistance. Just lots of male attention. When she dies, she leaves Ronnie a very generous bequest. Only if Ronnie completes a book about her life within 1 year. As she's drawn into the world of young Violet, Ronnie is mesmerized by life in a simpler time. It's an irresistible journey filled with revelations, some of them about men Ronnie knew as octogenarians at Fairfield Springs. Struggling, insecure, flailing at the keyboard, Ronnie juggles her patience, a new boyfriend, and a Samsonite factory of emotional baggage as she tries to craft a manuscript before her deadline. But the secrets start to emerge, some of them in person, and they don't stop. Everything changes. Alternating chapters between Homecoming Queen Violet in 1947 and Can't Quite Find Her Crown Ronnie in the present, it all comes back to you as a book club fiction at its hilarious, warm, sad, outrageous, uplifting, and stunning best. In the tradition of Major Pettigrew's Last Stand and Olive Kingridge, Duke delivers an unforgettable elderly character to treasure and young heroine to steal your heart. So when I originally read the synopsis during book club, I immediately thought Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And so that was kind of my basis for my expectations of this book. And it lived up to it. I gave this 5 stars. I laughed, I cried, I hurt. And again, like I said, I read it all in one sitting. And for me to do that with a book like this, it's a pretty thick book, 288 pages, but I just read it all in one sitting, and that is very, very unusual for me. So I highly recommend this book, especially if you enjoyed The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It is not the same story, but it is told in kind of the same way, and it gets that same kind of feel, and there's some big revelations along the way too. So that's it on this book. Highly recommended it. Really enjoyed it. 5 stars. The next book that I picked up was also an audiobook, The Golden Towers, which is the 5th book in the Magisterium series co-authored by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. I really enjoyed it. Gave it 4 stars. I think this may be the last book in the series, but I don't know. I need to look a little further into it, but it kind of had that final book feel. So again, like I said, I'm not going to give a lot of details about this or a synopsis on it because it is the 5th book in the series, and it's a middle grade to the Chosen One / Evil Overlord type adventure, and it's about mages and magic, so go check it out if that sounds interesting to you. My next audiobook was The Near Witch by Victoria Schwab. I gave this one 4 stars, and it is a tale about a witch that is haunting a city, the city of Near, or town of Near, I guess. It had some really great moments in it. I could tell that it was one of her first books out, but she is still, Victoria Schwab is still such a great writer. There were parts of it that I was like, okay, hurry up and come along. But it's I want to say a middle grade book, or at least a young adult book. It's a young adult book. But it had a lot of pieces to it that felt a little bit more immature than what the character ages were supposed to represent. Again, though, I really enjoyed it. It's a Victoria Schwab, V.E. Schwab book, and she's one of my favorite authors, so 4 stars for it. Then, the last book of the month that I listened to was an audiobook, Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey Quinston. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of the storyline that I didn't enjoy. It wasn't, there was some miscommunication, that trope I just do not like. But it's kind of a enemies to lovers trope, which that is phenomenal. And it was also features 2 gay male characters, bisexual and gay male characters. And I just really enjoyed it. There was some good banter in it. I gave it 4 stars. It felt a little long to me. I think a lot of it could have been cut out, but I did find it interesting that it was because it is the president's son and the son of the Queen of England, so it was an interesting dynamic. I really enjoyed it on that aspect of it, but it seemed like it took freaking forever, so I gave it 4 stars. So that is all the books that I read this month. If you were counting, I believe it's 16 books. Again, audiobooks. August was a huge audiobook month for me because I was working such long hours by myself for most of the month, and I have an hour and a half, 2 hour commute to and from work, so I get a lot of audiobook time during that. So yeah, that's it. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know what you think of these books if you have read them. Let me know if you're going to pick any of these books up. Love to hear your thoughts on them as well. And you guys know what to do at this point of the video. If you've enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up over there. If you're not already subscribed, also go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified of when I post new videos. And also, be sure and leave me a comment down below just letting me know your thoughts on the books that I've read, or if you don't have any comments on the books, then I am happy to have an emoji or just a hello so that I know you watch the video and it still allows me to interact with you in the comments. And until next month when we wrap up my September books that I've read, I will talk to you later. Bye.